Hello and welcome to another one of my hand histories. In this particular hand we are playing 6 max, but there's only 5 players. If you'll notice that most of them have a normal stack, normal stack, normal stack, normal stack. The only one with a large stack is on the button. We have ace 10 suited, so if we come over here you'll notice that the ace 10 suited versus a range I've given this particular player. I think most passive players, this is a pretty good range, roughly 37%. If you're not familiar with Flopzilla, I recommend watching some videos. There's a lot of great videos on how to use Flopzilla. It is great for going through hand histories. Basically, these hands that are not highlighted are probably hands that he would have re-raised with. Even passive players will typically re-raise with these hands. So given this range, we're about a 62% favorite to win. So let's see how this plays out. Now it's folded to me. I usually like to raise anywhere from 3 to 3.5 big blinds. I find that if I raise less than that, I usually end up in a multi-way pot, or worse, I get re-raised, which is neither of those are good options. So in this particular case, I raised 3.6. Unfortunately, the button decides to come along and the blinds get out of the way. So let's go back to the flop is ace 10 5 with 2 diamonds, ace, and what was that again, 10 of hearts. So we unclick that. So based on this, we are roughly an 89% favorite to win. So if we come over here, I usually, in this particular situation, I want to be called. I don't want to bet to quote unquote protect my hand. I want to be called. So I should bet an amount that I would get ace weak kickers to call, pair of tens to call. I don't think there could be, but there might be a pair of fives. We want them to call. We want the flush draws to call, gut shots to call. Any pair smaller than ace, we want them to call as well. We're beating all those hands. We don't want them to fold. So usually what I do is I bet around a third of the pot. And in this case I do. And the button decides to come along because that's what passive players do. So what would he call with? Well, we'll use red. Red is hands that are beating us. So would a straight call? Well, there's none out there right now. Sets, call, yes. 2 pairs, call, yes. These are hands that are actually beating us. That's why I marked them in red. These players usually like to slow play these kind of hands. Well, what about top pair? We're going to mark these in green. These are hands that we're beating. Top pair would definitely call. There aren't any below top card. Middle pairs. These players hate to fold any pair. So yes, he would call with a pair of tens, I believe. What about sixes through nines? Well, once again, I think that these passive players would like to see at least one more card, so they would call. Pair of fives, yeah, I think they would call for at least one street. What about 2 through 4s? I think even passive players might give up on that. There's a few players that'll call, but I think the average player would give up on those. And obviously, they wouldn't call with no main hands. But all the flush draws, all the straight draws, they would all call. So based on this, we're only losing to roughly 8% of his range. We're beating 92% of his range. So we're looking good right now. So return card is a king of spades. Not a horrible card, but not a great card. So king of spades. So we unclick that. Right now we're still beating 80%. We still expected 80% to win. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to bet enough to give, if he is on some sort of draw, the wrong odds to call. If he's still chasing that flush draw, we don't want to give him a free card. On the same token, we don't want to bet so much that we get the flush cards to fold. We still want to bet enough to where the aces will call. Doubtful, but maybe he'd still call with tens. we definitely want any of the kings to call. So in this situation, I think a half-size pot is probably the right amount, which is about what I do. And of course, passive players, he comes along. So what would he do that with? Well, once again, let's mark in red. He'd still slow play a straight, still slow play a set, still slow play two pairs. So I think he would call with all those. Let's go to green. These are hands that he would call with that we're beating. Top pair, yes. Middle pair. With a pair of kings, he just hit his king. Yes, he would definitely call. What about second card? There aren't any. What about weak pairs? Well, with an ace and a king, I don't think he would call. Even passive players would probably give up on their hand. So once again, he would call the flush and all the draws. So we click green, and we're still beating 68% of his range, if I'm guessing his range to be correct. So 2 out of 3 times we're still ahead, so we're still looking good. 5 of hearts, that shouldn't change anything. I don't believe he's hung around with a 5. I could be wrong, but I think he would have given up any 5 he would have had. Maybe if he had ace 5 suited, like say ace of clubs, 5 of clubs, maybe he hung around, but that's such a small portion of his range. So at this point, no matter what I bet, the flush draw is going to fold. So I can't bet small enough to get, let's say he had, I don't know, say 6 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds. Well, he's not going to call any bet. But on the same token, if he had, I don't know, ace 9 or ace jack, maybe even ace queen, he is not folding to any size bet. So we should bet on the larger size. What if he had, I don't know, king queen? I think he would call any size bet. So at this point, I think a 2/3 size pot is correct, which is what we do. And I get raised. Oh, not good. Now, the typical passive player on the micro stakes does not bluff the river. They just hate bluffing the river. If he had, any kind of weak holding, he would be happy to call and see if his holding is good. So let's enter 5 of hearts. And right now we're still 75% favorite to win before there was any action, but let's add the action. Let's click on red. These are hands that are beating us. Would he have raised us with quads, full house, straight, 3 of a kind? Yes. Would he have raised us with 2 good pair? Yeah, I mean, it's doubtful he has ace 10, but he could, and we'd be chopping it. So let's go ahead and change that one to green, because we're not necessarily losing, we're chopping. These are hands that we're beating. So would he raise with top pair? I don't think he would raise that with top pair. I think at this point he'd be happy to just call. Bad 2 pair, king 10. Yeah, he might think his king 10's good and raise. So we'll give him that one. What about middle pair? No, he would not have raised with a pair of 5s or a weak pair. Definitely wouldn't raise with nothing. So we click this. Ooh, we're losing to 70, almost 74% of his range. We're only beating 26% of his range. So the correct move, even though it's painful, is to fold. I mean, 2 pairs does not, top 2 pair like that does not come often, but the correct move is to fold. But instead, I call and I get the bad news. Queen, jack suited. So let's go back here. Queen, jack suited. That is in our range there. We put him on a straight. I mean, that was one of the hands that could beat us. So let's look back. Queen, jack, that call. Wow. The call on the flop was a little bit loose with a gut shot, but he hit the miracle gut shot. I believe, in hindsight, I played the flop and the turn correctly, and I think I even played the river correctly until I called his raise. That's where I made the mistake. So if you disagree with the way I played up until the final call, please leave a comment below. And thank you for watching.